Hey, my
Yeah,
friend,
sorry,
how you doing?
I have to use the phone. I'm all right, man. I have to use. Well, I'm not right, but I have to use the phone because my computer's on the spin fritz. Well,
So here we are, take two. James, very good to see you. Welcome to Who Cares? Tell me a little bit about yourself and why do you care about what's going on in the world?
I've done it for a while.
Okay, so here we are. We're going to try it again just with audio. Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties from a couple of old
Okay.
techie guys trying to
Well, I
figure.
mean, I think me and you both have had the life of when we fix it with duct tape
Right?
and get it along a little further. So,
So you've had a little bit of a
um,
life, James. You've been all over the world. You hail from Georgia. You've got a tremendous amount of life experience. You're super talented and creative. Wonderful guy. You were great to have as a neighbor here in Edmonton, and we miss you dearly. So I was excited when you said you'd like to be on the show. So this is Who Cares. I'm talking to friends that just regular everyday people like yourselves and me, and trying to get to the meat of it. Like why do you care? What is it in your life that makes you give a crap about anything, James?
well, I got uh like the big thing is like I want Camille to talk to you at some point because I got involved with a lot of the projects she was doing because I do graphics and video and stuff like that. So she's doing the stuff with pangolins and working with other people. So I'm doing stuff too, doing coloring books and bringing up awareness and things like that for endangered animals, which is to me is a big deal. And then simultaneously, I care because I hear lately I care a lot more. I at least to get a lot more angry. I'm sure, like on Facebook, I went on a huge rant on purpose to try to get banned because I don't want to be on Meta. And yeah, I'm done. They don't want me there no more, and that's fine. So, but I'm just tired of all the. I think even the late night hosts are getting. It's not that I don't care; you just get sick of it,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the Trump stuff is what I'm basically talking about,
So I
and
want to
not to
touch in on that
mention,
because it's going to be very obvious for our viewers and listeners that you've got a very strong Southern United States accent,
yeah,
and
I sound like
us
Conan.
Canadians we like to think we're fairly smart and fairly worldly, but most of us are going to think, wow, Southern white guy, he's got to be a Trumper. So how does that jive with
Yeah.
your friends and family?
Oh, I would say 90% of them can't stand it. Family's different. I come from a family of one side's highly uneducated and one side's highly educated. And I'm not going to tell you which ones pick which, but you're pretty sure that you can figure that one out. I mean, it's like the highly educated kind of voted for, Kamala Harris. Um, so I mean, I've lost a lot of friendships over it. I
But you,
lost a
you
lot of
were you were
friendships.
growing up back in the '80s, early '90s, I guess, down in
Yeah,
Georgia. Would
70s. Woohoo! Jimmy Carter.
There you go. So
Um,
you would have been a wee lad when he was president, or what?
yeah, I remember. I think I was in first grade when it was him against Reagan, and being in Georgia, people would run around and say Reagan, Reagan. I'm like, no, Jimmy Carter, because he's a Georgia boy. And then later on in life, you find out that you look back on Jimmy Carter's life and go, good Lord, what did he not do? Um,
So when you
so
were when you
I
were
don't know.
growing up in Georgia, did were you kind of were you just like everyone else? Were you fitting in fine, or were you a bit of a an outcast
Oh
with?
no, I was a total anarchist, crazy punk rock kid that I grew up in downtown Atlanta for a chunk of my life. So I grew up around a lot of black folks, African Americans, listened to a lot of rap music, a lot of Hispanic folks, Latino, Cuban. Yeah, we all kind of hung out and nobody cared about anything. I was like the token white kid, but they didn't treat me any different. Not after a while.
But
But
you
then I moved
gravitated
from
towards
there.
punk rock and not hip hop, for example.
Well, I did. I listened to a lot of hip hop. Then midway through that, my cousin um kept giving me like Led Zeppelin albums and the Beatles and Rush. Fell in love with Rush. Kim Mitchell. There's some Canadian folks out there. Not to mention, I had Anne Murray on a little 45 record as a kid. I would sing Snowbird.
But
But
but you wouldn't be able to tell your friends that. You'd probably get
I
beat on.
still I didn't care. I'd tell them anyway. But then my mom, my parents got divorced, and my mom, we moved way up North Georgia, which is really rural. So it was all white guys with cowboy boots. So I kind of was listening to stuff like Metallica at the time. Metallica leads into the Misfits, and so you kind of go backwards in your history into Dead Kennedys and Black Flag and stuff. And so I really hated country people. Uh, didn't mind anybody of any other kind of ethnicity. Did never bother me. It was just the guys up there who were just like stupid, and they had like we always called them husbands because they were like husbands, but who they married were their cousins.
So when you were
So
coming up, and you got into the punk rock scene, is that when you started to get into a little bit of mutual aid work in your community, or was that always something that was a part of you and your family growing up?
oh no, that was the punk thing. Yeah. After high school or in between all of that, I used to work with the FFA a lot, which kind of starts, which was like the chicken queues. It's something you guys may not do up here. FFA is Future Farmers of America, and you would go cook these half chickens on this big thing and cook all these sides, and people would come buy them for like $5 a meal. You get half a chicken and some other stuff, but the money would go back into projects for like local community stuff or building something or even the FFA, to kind of do it again next time. But then with the punk stuff, we started. My family didn't celebrate holidays. We didn't. I'm an only child, so Thanksgiving was me and my dad, or Thanksgiving was me and my mom, which meant we'd go to a place like Waffle House. It's open 24 hours a day. Well, I decided on Thanksgiving I'd start go volunteering for Hosea Williams, um, who used to feed the homeless on Thanksgiving. Hosea Williams was part of the civil rights movement. Big guy in Georgia. He was there with Martin Luther King. Uh, he's just an old grandpa kind of guy. I got
Hosea.
to meet Louis, huh?
Hosea?
Hosea Williams. Yeah, you can look him up. He's
Gotta
he's
write it down.
done some things, but he's also notorious for at times he was the town drunk, I guess, for Atlanta. He drank a lot and did some dumb stuff, but for the most part, he always had a good heart. Um, so I got to go down there. I would work with him. He would come and give you a big hug. I'd be the token white guy down there, but it never seemed to bother me. And I got to meet Louis Farrakhan, which he was nice to me, which apparently I didn't know who he was at the time, but he didn't like white guys. I just happened to, I guess, that day. All I know is he was a little bitty man with the giant Muslim Brotherhood walking around him that swear to God I was going to get beat up by somebody. But no, they're well dressed, very nice and polite. And we did it at Turner Field, which is where the Braves play, because Ted Turner used to let them use it and donate a bunch of money to. Ted Turner did a lot too for Georgia. He's a lot nicer than people probably make him out to be, but
Yeah,
he is
from
also crazy.
yeah, and his wife is fairly active still.
Oh yeah,
Is Ted Turner still alive?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. He sold everything to I think the Time Warner, and he's totally out of the TV biz. And then Jane Fonda, they're divorced, but I think Jane Fonda still does activism.
I believe that she still is. She still is. When
So
you first got involved with FFA, did you get right into cooking with them, or did you have doing other things? 'Cause I know I've had your food. You're an excellent
no,
cook.
it was FFA. You started out doing stuff like parliamentary procedures and stuff like that. So you go in there and they would teach you how to do, like, I was an electrical wiring contest. And it was like farming things that you would do if you wanted to be a farmer or help around the house or something. But you could get a degree, you could get a technical degree in it in high school and move forward. But you could do stuff like you'd do that. We would do the cook stuff because it was easy. But me and my buddy Mike, who was also in the band with me we were kind of the two misfits, but the teachers knew we were intelligent. So 9 times out of 10, when it came to those kind of classes, he'd go, "Okay, you two," because instead of us making trouble, he would pull us aside and go, "I really believe in you. Could you go do this one thing? Go over here with a torch and cut this barrel in half." Or something. And so there was a lot of teachers that would kind of figure out, oh, if we give them something to do that's kind of above everybody else's range, just slightly, they have to use their brain, they won't cause problems. Not to say we didn't cause problems, but it was a lot of stuff. You learned how to work on vehicles, you learned how to maintain tractors, how to plant food, how to do all that stuff, how to wire, yeah, like fix your electrical outlet.
And then were you
I
able
don't know if
to
they.
were you able to use any of those skills back in your home or in your community
Oh
or
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, it's like simple stuff, and then we kind of knew how to change oil in vehicles and stuff. But he'd be like, "Hey man, we need to go change the oil in a tractor. You want to go do that?" And go, "Yeah." And also, he was a baseball coach. He was one of the baseball coaches, so I played baseball on and off. So um, I was good at that sport. I can't stand watching it.
tell me about some of the opportunities you had volunteering that turned into something more.
Let's see. Volunteer. Well, I used to do food not bombs, which is uh, it's a big thing, especially punk rock stuff. I used to trying to think. I used to like even here. I volunteered at the local mission community, where I take up around Christmas. I take stuffed animals to all the seniors.
Nice.
Um, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you volunteer. For example, I volunteered to work on a movie, which led me into doing movies.
Oh well, there you go.
Uh, I volunteered to work. I did internship volunteer work at in hockey. Wound up getting a career out of hockey because of that.
That's interesting. What kind
So
of career out of hockey did you get?
I did I was the video director, or the game night operations director. So I would go up there because I wanted to learn. Said, how much, can I come and just volunteer and help out? And they're like, yeah, I had to do a lot of stuff other than that. But then once the game started, they put me in a control booth, and I'd be up there just sitting beside the guy. And eventually he'd just look at you and go, all right, you do it. And
So
you go, huh? And during a live game.
was that your first experience in that large sort of switchboard experience and dealing with AV and timing and music and
Not all. Well, I mean, we used to do it because I was in a band prior, so we kind of knew that. But then again, it was a punk band. This was like a whole bunch of people, and so previous to this, though, I had volunteered because I liked hockey. But when we lived in Fairbanks, Alaska, I volunteered because those guys, the Fairbanks Ice Dogs, NAHL, um, like it's like a junior men's league, but it's semi-professional. And
mhm.
I volunteered there because they would come hang out with me. And I didn't have any friends in Fairbanks. My wife was going to school, and I was out playing hockey in shoes, and had all the gear, but didn't know how to skate. But they would play with me, and eventually I volunteered for them selling chucka pucks, and then doing that. Then I wound up working for Gary Unger in Alabama, just because I would show up and go, "Y'all need help?" And I wound up counting shots on goal for Gary Unger before, stuff like that. And then, if you keep poking at people long enough, eventually they go, yeah, yeah, come on. You're going to help me for free? Okay. And so, but yeah, a lot of those things, I don't know, one thing leads to another, and, you wind up making friends throughout the year. So, I mean, even me and you, I mean, for a long time in Edmonton, me and you were feeding people with our own money. We would go and do I do miss the place. Canadian Wholesale is where I used to get all that stuff, and they
Hmm.
have them in Edmonton. But over here in Mission, there's only one. It's way out in Vancouver. It's like 2 hour drive. I remember us doing hot dogs for people and doing all that kinds of stuff. And I know you would take it down there and hand it out, and I know it kind of got a little risky. And so eventually, financially and risk versus reward didn't pay off because it was like things were getting tough on everybody. Because this was what, right before COVID or right after?
Yeah, I think it was right after. It was like that
Yeah.
spring of 2020 we were doing that.
So, yeah, so I mean, I don't know, it leads to a lot of good things. Sometimes, only thing bad about volunteering sometimes is you just got to know where you got to cut it off, because there's some people out there who wants to volunteer, but they don't. Sometimes they just want free help. They're not really looking after somebody else. But if you find somebody who's got a good heart and they're trying, that's the person you hook your wagon to,
Hmm.
not somebody asking for volunteers to do something stupid.
And you've done both. You've kind of been self-directed.
Uh,
You've run some things on your own, helping people out in your community, and also plugged in
yeah,
with
we
other
do.
groups.
Yeah, we do a chili cook-off here in the building that I'm at. We had two of them in a year, two in a row. It's an annual thing now, and I go around and much like in hockey and everything else, you go out, shake hands, and kiss babies, and you beg little stores, hey, could I get a gift card and things like that. And sure enough, there's a lot of places out here that are like franchised out. They're major names like Mary Brown's, for example. That's a pretty significant chain. I went to them and asked for, hey, can you do something for me for the winter? And we wound up walking in there hoping to get $100 worth of stuff. I think we left with about $400 worth of stuff overall. So not only did we give away prizes for first, second, and third place chili, we also started giving out door prizes. Um, all of it was mostly food based, so people could get something to eat.
Did you,
Um,
when you first started canvassing restaurants and purveyors of food, was that something that you picked up in the early days of your work with Food Not Bombs?
no, that was actually from hockey. Because a lot of times with Food Not Bombs, what would happen is we couldn't make it on time, but they would need somebody to be at the park. So we would show up and help them at the park serve. So I wasn't in on the side of cooking or getting that stuff, but I started learning how to go get free stuff from hockey because in hockey, I was working for the ECHL, very small Southern team. People aren't showing up really to see hockey as much as just it's a night out to go drink and hope they see a fight, especially in the Southern United States. But you'd have to go out and talk to people and go, hey, look, we don't want money, but you can sponsor our power play if you'll give us this. So it's kind of like that. So for me, I'd go, look, I'll put you on the flyers, et cetera, and make sure everybody knows that you were there or you supported this if you'll just give us a $10 gift card. And then all of a sudden, like $10 can't buy you anything anymore. I'm like, yeah, you always start low, not high. When you want somebody to do something for free, you got to start low and then
Mm,
try to get a little bit more. But they always go, well, $10. No, here's $50, and you're like, oh, okay.
nice.
Um, but that's how I learned how to do that. Um, just because I was going with people who were selling tickets and stuff. So when I worked in hockey, me and my wife, me and Camille, we didn't have to pay for a dentist. We didn't have to pay for physical therapy. We didn't have to pay for anything. And you have to pay for all that stuff in the States. But like if I needed something, you could go somewhere because we had so much credit with all these people because that's how it was all barter system. But I remember just, you go to a chiropractor for free and it was kind of cool. So I kind of like the barter system, you know, as long as the bartering is equal or for a good cause, So
Right.
even now we were doing it we tried to do it in Edmonton a little bit. We did it in Augusta a lot. We did it in Wisconsin. Now we do it here. We buy food from local farms. They actually box it up and bring it to you. Here it's called Odd Bunch here
Mm.
in the Abbotsford area. And for $20, you get a big giant box of food. They're just ugly. It's just ugly food. But I mean, that helps out the local farmers. So I don't know. It's always sense of community. I mean, like when I lived there, I mean, Ralph's. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about Ralph's. There was a time I went in there and didn't have any money and forgot that I didn't have any money. I thought I got paid, and he just looked at me and said, "Just take the stuff, keep the receipt, and pay me whenever you got it." That's community.
Yeah,
And
we
I
miss
went back and paid.
we really miss Ralph's, and in fact, we're now missing Lee's. Believe it or not, nobody really liked
Really?
going to Lee's, but now we can't because they abruptly shut their business down. So now we
That's
have
crazy.
no convenience store in our neighborhood, and we're hoping that the owners, well, you know the owner of that building, we're hoping that he's able
Yeah.
to find somebody, and he's actively looking for somebody that can fill that convenience store gap
Yeah.
in our neighborhood because there's that giant seniors residence across the street from Lee's, and of course our complex. We've got probably well over 1,000 people just in this complex.
Yeah. And I'm just surprised that they would go because they were the last, like kind of like the last man standing with Ralph's gone. And now that there's a stop right there,
Mm-hmm.
like, you got the LRT there. So it doesn't make any sense. But then again, I've been in that store. I wasn't a big fan of it either. They were okay, I guess. Trying to make a living. That's all anybody's trying to do anymore.
So tell me about we got a few minutes left before our recording craps out or the meeting craps out. Tell me about your time in Africa or times in Africa with Camille and some of the community work you might have found yourself involved in.
I guess I went there to Uganda. Camille was out there working and studying, so I went to visit her. And for 3 weeks, it was, I don't know, when James comes to town, it's like, okay, the party begins. And I say that, and I don't mean it like, it's like I showed up and they put somebody with me because they call me a, uh, Mazunga, which means basically Eastern European white guy. But they will take advantage of you when you go to the markets because they know you got money. But normally you buy a head of cabbage for 35 cents or something, and they're trying to charge you 50, which in my case, I'm like, who gives a shit? Give them the 50. But they're like, no. But I was there, and it was set up very strange where all the people who worked for the hunting group stayed in their own cabins away. And it was very reminiscent. And I'm not trying to say this to sound anything negative towards the guy there in Uganda. It was set up like old school slave shacks in the South. When you go to museum places, it'd be like the main people stay up here in the plantation, so to speak. They weren't plantations, but it was like nice housing, running water. And all the people who work the field or work in the hunting thing, they're up in these little bitty rundown things, just keeps the rain off of them and stuff. And it kind of bummed me out. But I got to where I'd go up there and hang out with them and drink. And then we went out, and the owner wasn't anywhere around. He's like hours away. We go into a small town, buy a bunch of food, and cook like barbecue warthog. And all hang out. So it's like I don't know. When I show up, I just try to do whatever. And the funny thing there, I had to do a 10K for rain. Rain, rape, abuse, incest, et cetera, et cetera. I signed up to do that. So I did a 10K around the camp, and they were all like cheering me on, and Camille was like, "Yeah, you got to go," and she did it with me, and it was kind of cool. So it was to raise some money for that. So
Cool. I want to
so
talk
I
a
did
little
a
bit.
rain thing in Uganda. That's weird.
I want to talk a little bit about barbecue. The first time I met you, I was just moving in. We were literally just the first day at the new apartment, bringing in our furniture, and you come out. You're like, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. We're making some barbecue, and if you and the boys need some food, it's going. And yeah, you're always very gracious and very generous with the food and with the barbecue and building community. So I'm curious about the barbecue in Africa with the warthog. I've never had warthog. Imagine it tastes like chicken or some other type of animal.
It was tough. I overcooked it,
Where
but I kind of did it on purpose because you want to overcook game meat sometimes because worms and whatever else. So
I'm curious about the knowledge exchange regarding barbecue. Was it fairly even, or did you offer more barbecue knowledge to the locals there, or did you pick up more knowledge from them to incorporate into your own?
it was both. Um, I'll tell you a funny thing. We were there. There was no chef. There was a guy named Waspa. He was kind of like a cook, and he was learning, but he would cook food for everybody. But I would go in there with him and cook. And they had a weird little kitchen, and we'd sit there and cook together. And I would show him stuff, and he'd show me stuff. And there's a video online. I think it's on YouTube. They wanted to teach me how to make I think post show or something. I forgot what I was making, and they were just laughing because they're like, never seen a white guy do this before. And so I would do that. But then the real chef came in, Robert Okori. He came in, great guy. He's classically trained, but also he knows how to deal with bushmeat and stuff like that. So he would cook and show you his way of doing stuff. But while I was there, they would make roti and stuff like that. So it's just like flatbread that's been cooked, similar to tortilla. So I showed them how to make burritos because they have avocados there the size of footballs.
Wow.
So we made burritos, and then we made pizza, and then Camille ordered it looks like a soccer ball, and you put ice on the outside and put the cream in the middle with the sugar, and you kick the ball around, and it makes ice cream. And you just got to keep rolling the ball. It's kind of like the old time churns, but basically you're playing with a ball on the floor.
That's funny.
And these people never had ice cream,
Wow.
like most of the people who work there, because there was no hunters when we were there. It was like off season. And so all these guys, they would sit there, and when we left, of course, Camille left it and said, "Here you go." And they used it all the time. They would actually got to where they were using it for guests. When guests would show up, they'd be like, "We can offer you ice cream." Now, the funny thing is, everything was run on a generator. So the freezers would shut off during parts of the day. Nothing was ever cold enough to be frozen. So it's kind of one of those hard things where you had to make sure you're running the generator long enough. And the same was true. That's the way you had to use your laundry, and they had wash machines and things. So. And they also had baboons that would run through, and they'd shoot at them, and
Mhm.
you'd have hippos run through in the middle of the night,
Oh my
and
goodness.
gators, and we had a whole bunch of donkeys that were there just to eat the grass.
The way I understand it, hippos are vegetarians. And speaking
Yeah,
of
but the
vegetarian, when you were in Food Not Bombs, was it vegan and vegetarian you guys were serving out in
Yep,
the park?
yeah, always was. We would do it was always like a goulash, or we used to call it goulash. I don't know. It just be like a bunch of vegetables, like a vegetable soup or whatever but it would be less liquid and like a lot of noodles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it would be like you go get the big tin can
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, and you dump all the bean, bunch of these types of beans, red bean, kidney beans, black beans.
Yeah, just
Then you start putting corn in there, just
basically like a
good
stone
overall.
soup, like a yeah.
Yeah, it was basically something warm to eat. Um, I know they used to do. We did one time we were doing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and giving away. Somebody had scored a bunch of, and that's it's going to sound gross, hickory sticks,
Mm,
but they were all like boxes that were
like damaged
uh
or so.
yeah, they were expired by like a
Okay.
week. But getting a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a bag of hickory sticks is just weird. But there people were thankful for it. I mean, it was cool. And I would sit over there and eat it too. I mean,
Nice. So with
I
our
was
with
one
our
of
couple
those.
minutes with our couple minutes left, I want to talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your film work. Now you've volunteered a ton for and alongside myself with some of the projects that I've worked on. But I'm
Yeah, yeah.
curious, but you've made films. You've worked on different films. I want to talk. What's cooking? What's coming up in the future? Do you got any scripts in development? You got any films on the go?
No, no, I've kindly backed out all of that. Really, it's I got to film a little bit of the stuff for Camille. She's gonna be doing trying to do a talk about statistics um for a big convention coming up. And I do graphic work now for her company, basic things like business cards and things like that when they need something. But I haven't really looked into filming anything. I mean, I'm a lot less wanting to film because I don't know. It's like I think Kevin Smith said it best. It's like Atlas pushing that rock up the hill. As much as you love the feeling of getting to the top of the rock, boy, you really hate pushing it. And it's like, man, it takes a lot to start it and go through it. So I tried not. Until something huge comes along or I get a phone call. I do get phone calls. I got a message this morning from New Orleans asking me to come be a camera guy for an MMA show.
There you go. Oh, that's something
For
else that we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about your wrestling career. You're so prolific. So I got about 45 seconds or so, maybe a minute or two. Any final thoughts about Who Cares and anything, bits of wisdom or something you'd like to leave our audience?
Yeah, I'll say this really quick. I love professional wrestling. The reason why it was crazy and it was fun and goofy, even if you knew who was going to win or lose. The sad part about that is now I think between politics and pro wrestling, wrestling's the thing that's real now. You can put your faith in pro wrestling, you can't put your faith in politicians. Because at least in pro wrestling, somebody loses and somebody wins, and that's and hopefully you go home happy afterwards because it's a bunch of fake people, not fake. They're athletes and they're entertainers beating the crap out of each other in the ring for some reason. That's the way this whole thing should be handled. Just put them in a cage.
That would be exciting. But who do
I
we
bet you.
who do we put in the cage? I guess it'd be like a tag team. We got Trump and Musk, but who would we put up against them?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I would put Kamala Harris in there. I think she's pretty tough. Obviously not Joe Biden, because he's slightly old. You can put Trudeau in there with him. Not that I'm not a big fan of Trudeau, but then again, I'm not really a Canadian citizen. I don't have a much to yell
But
about. But
did you ever see that fight that Trudeau did with Senator Brazeau?
no,
Oh, you should look that up on the YouTube.
they
It's
did a real fight.
yeah, they actually boxed in the ring.
Oh wow! Oh, I'll check that out.
And no spoilers, I'll let you check that out. It's fairly entertaining.
So, oh yeah, but yeah, that's cool.
Well, that's fantastic, James. I'm super stoked that you took the time to be on the show this morning and help me through, or at least endure some of the technical difficulties, and we got something in the can here. That's wonderful. It's great to hear
Oh,
some of
it's
your
my
stories.
fault. Sorry. It's my
Oh, and then we're done.